better. Hi everyone, and welcome back to M Talks. This is episode number 4. In this episode, I am going to talk about my autistic experience. And when I say that, basically means that this is my experience of autism. So I was diagnosed with autism in, it was last March. I think it was like 3rd of March 2023. Wow. 3rd of the 3rd 23. Yeah. Oh, that would have been cool if it was the 23rd of the 3rd 23. Anyway, it was back in August 2022 that I became aware that I could be autistic. And this was from watching TikToks, and obviously you know how the algorithm works. When you start watching videos that take an interest to you, they show you more of that content. And obviously my content was with like autism, ADHD, all these people sort of like sharing their experience on what it was for them. I basically had the that's me moment where I was like, every video I was watching, I was like, that's me, that is me. So I went down the rabbit hole, did more research into what autism is. I decided to write a list of all the traits that I resonated with, and then eventually in November I approached my GP to get an official assessment. So this is the thing, like I wasn't originally going to go down the route of getting diagnosed or, having an assessment for diagnosis, but there's just a part of me that was thinking like, I just want to know, like from a professional standpoint. Obviously by that point I'd sort of self-diagnosed myself anyway, and self-diagnosis is valid. I'm not taken away from someone's personal feelings. If you self-diagnose as autistic, like you clearly know yourself better than anyone else, so that is completely valid. But for me, I just wanted like a professional confirmation. So what I did was I went to my GP with this list of all the traits all these traits that I identified with, and she was very understanding. She was like, yeah, like I completely understand. There's a whole generation of women in particular that have been gone completely under the radar, because autism wasn't really that well known in our generation, like especially growing up. I was just considered a shy, introverted girl. And guess what? That's how autism can appear in women and girls. So I went down the right to choose pathway, and this is where your GP refers you to a private company, so you don't get the NHS waiting times. I think I was quoted like 3 years before I would have got an assessment via the NHS. But because of this right to choose pathway, the GP refers you to a private company. Often it's Psychiatry UK, and then your assessment goes through them, basically. And the best part of this is that it's free. It doesn't cost you a penny. It's all goes through the NHS. Although it's a bit different when it comes to if you're getting an ADHD assessment. because with ADHD, so autism can't be treated with medication. ADHD, on the other hand, is treated by medication, and it doesn't apply to me because I didn't go down the ADHD assessment route. Although I do feel I do have. I mean, let's get onto that now. So, autism and ADHD have like crossover traits, and I think it's between 50 and 80% of people who are autistic also have ADHD. So, yeah, I don't know if that's just because of the crossover traits, but yeah, there's a lot of traits that I identify with ADHD, but then I don't know if that's just because it's the autism, I don't know. I'm not a psychiatrist, but I have done a fair amount of research, and I'm a lot clued up than I was over 2 years ago. So where was I? Completely lost my train of thought. Right to choose pathway. Yeah, so if you went down the ADHD assessment route, you would be given medication for that, and you would technically still be on the private pathway, and for medication you would have to pay for that yourself. That would not be covered by the NHS until they transferred it. Because I haven't gone down that pathway, I'm not really sure the ins and outs of how you get a private prescription transferred to the NHS. So, yeah. I have heard it's quite expensive for the titration medication. Titration is what they call it, for various doses. Or it's like to find the dose that's right for you. And there's various types of medication. Not every medication works. So I think titration is what they call it when they're trying to figure out your dose and your med, basically figuring out what meds work for you. But as I said, I didn't go down that route, so doesn't really apply to me. So yeah, I approached my GP in November 2022, and I asked to be referred via the right to choose pathway. So I asked to be referred via the right to choose pathway because I wasn't willing to wait for 3 years before I got an assessment. I believe the waiting list with the NHS now is something ridiculous, like 6 or 7 years. I could be wrong, but I don't think so. In the last few years, the awareness of ADHD and autism has skyrocketed. I mean, I guess I got in there in good time, really, because from the time I saw my GP to the time I got a diagnosis, so I'd gone through all the form filling, questionnaires, interviews with the psychologist and all that. And about 4 months in total. So yeah, a lot quicker going down the right to choose pathway, for sure. In my meeting with the psychologist, when she phoned me to give my diagnosis, afterwards she said, "So are you surprised? What are your thoughts on it, basically?" And I said, "No, I'm not surprised. I was expecting that response, diagnosis, because at that point I had done enough research to like understand that all my differences that I'd experienced throughout my life was because of being autistic, basically. Yeah, it's not really something I talk about openly. I don't really talk about it openly with many people. Not that I know many people, but like if someone expresses that they are neurodivergent or have autism, I generally do share that I'm also autistic, and to be fair, most of the time, are they surprised? I don't know. It's hard to gauge. So autism comes under various names. I think I was diagnosed with ASD, which is Autism Spectrum Disorder. It used to be known as Asperger's, but the DSM-5 criteria it's basically the diagnostic criteria that is the assessment booklet, basically, or manual. Yeah, they don't use the term, or they don't give the diagnosis name as Asperger's anymore, mainly because if you go into the history of Hans Asperger's, who is the guy that did most of the research into Asperger's autism, he basically had links with Hitler and the Nazi regime, and during that time in history, autistic boys were being killed because of their differences, or their disabilities. Yeah, Hans Asperger's was involved, as he was basically the psychologist that was doing assessments and essentially sentencing these little boys to death. So yeah, naturally the term Asperger's has sort of been ruled out due to political correctness, essentially. So it all comes under one umbrella of Autism Spectrum Disorder, ASD for short. They also sometimes call it ASC, which is Autism Spectrum Condition, because to call it disorder is I don't know, it's a difference, not a disorder. And yeah, I guess condition is it's a more politically correct term than disorder, I guess. Although under the Disabilities Act, autism is considered a disability. And one thing that people tend to get wrong is that autism isn't a scale. It's not a linear scale. So it's not that you're more autistic or less autistic. It's like a spectrum. So within this spectrum, there's segments of various categories, such as behaviour, sensory. I don't know. Hold on. I'll do a research. So I'm seeing it now. The spectrum it consists of information processing, executive function, sensory processing, repetitive behaviours, motor skills, perceptive thinking. I can't even read that word. Perservative thinking, social awareness, verbal and non-verbal communication, and yeah. So the spectrum is all these various categories, Obviously, within those categories, you could be severe or mild. And this is where, like, not all autistic people are the same. So, you know, within this spectrum, we can all experience various levels of these various categories in a way. So when I was growing up as a teenager, I'd say my social skills was very severe, because like I just didn't talk, basically. Yeah, I wasn't mute. I wasn't non-verbal. I did speak, but it was like selective. I guess selective mutism in a way. I'd only speak when I needed to, in public, obviously. When I was at home, like, I was more outgoing because I was in my safe environment. You know, I could be myself. You know, my dad would always joke and say, you know, I should record you and show you to your friends. You know, you're a completely different person when you get home. You know, yeah, that's fair. Like, it's called masking. So I think that's how I went under the radar for so many years, because, like, women, particularly autistic women, we mask. It's called masking, where you basically put on a mask. It says what it is on the tin. Yeah, so you basically like put on a face or a front, and you act to fit into the social norm. So yeah, like when I'm at home, like, yeah, if I had a camera set up to record me and my quirks, yeah, you'd definitely say, yep, she's autistic. Not in a bad way, of course. Like, it's not a bad thing. Like, being different is not bad. It's just different. Something I remember as a teenager, like, me and my sister would hang out with a couple of friends in our village, and like, one thing we'd usually do was go to the local like newsagents, or, you know, shop, and I would always give my sister my stuff and money to pay for my stuff, because I didn't like the social interaction with the person on the till, basically. Yeah, I was that bad, and yeah, and again, I'd get other people to take phone calls for me. Even to this day, I get James to make certain phone calls for me, just because, like, I don't know, like, part of me sort of freezes, and, like, I just get this horrible feeling, like, I hate it. Although, like, for work calls, I'm fine. Like, it's completely different. I can't explain it. Like, work calls I'm okay with. Well, I say okay with. They're normally not so long. So yeah, autism spectrum disorder is a very vast and broad condition. There's so many aspects of it. So if I was to whittle off things that affect me personally, so this is what I call my lived autistic experience. So it's how I experience autism. Not all autistic people will experience the same thing. As I said before, you know, not all autistic people are the same. There's certain repetitive movements I do. it could be as subtle as like, playing with my hair. No, that's not repetitive. No. So there's something called stimming, which is basically self-stimulation. And essentially it's like, it's generally like either a repetitive, it's generally a like repetitive movement, or it could be like a vocal stim, a sensory stim, and essentially stimming is to like regulate your nervous system. So for me, there's various stims that I do. It could be like playing with my hair. It could be as little as just having a piece of gum in my mouth and chewing a bit of gum. Also, I like sort of just do that sort of thing, like rub my fingernails, pick the skin at the side of my fingernails. Cracking your knuckles is another one. Like I sometimes do this. It could be if I'm in a standing position, like, swaying side to side. Or what else do I do? Like sometimes if I'm standing waiting for the microwave to ping, like I don't just do some sort of like thing while I'm waiting, sometimes I don't even know I'm doing it. Often when I'm watching the telly, like sitting down, my legs, I just do that with my feet, just pitter patter on the floor. And then so they're like the repetitive movement type stims. And then I also have stims that are like vocal. And that can range from like saying certain phrases, or just making random sounds, or like repeating something that you've just heard. So oh, right, I'm gonna share this. I'm gonna share. So one of my verbal stims is to basically say it's all gravy, or like it's all about the gravy, and like various takes on like it being about gravy. I don't know. It sounds funny just talking about it. But yeah, like it's all gravy. It's all about the gravy. Or it's gravy time. Oh, it sounds so stupid. But yeah, like other things, it's like I repeat certain things from TV shows like The Simpsons. That's, when Homer said, it was from the Simpsons movie actually, Spider Pig does whatever a Spider Pig does. I I sometimes like repeat that. And I like to go boo. Yep. I tend to find that I do that like when I'm thinking, like, yeah. So another thing, oh my god, there's just so many things going on in my head right now. So I don't know if this is an ADHD thing or like a crossover trait with autism, but like my mind is constantly on the go. Like I'm always thinking about things, like even in the shower when, it's supposed to be like relaxing, just washing your hair. But then nope, I've got things going through my head, like it can consist of like ruminating about past conversations, like thinking about what I've got to do that day, things I've got coming up in the future, like, dates and plans, like from chores that I need to get done, like even as detailed as planning a conversation in my head that I need to have with someone, or an email I need to write, or a post that I need to put out. Yeah. Oh, man. Yeah. So my head is always busy, like, it's never quiet. What was I talking about before I went? Oh yeah, stimming. So yeah, verbal stims and boo. Yeah, so getting on back to that, I find that when I do that particular stim, like the boo, it's often because I've thought of something cringy that I've like said in the past or done, and I don't know, like it almost like by making that sound boo, it sort of like expels it from me feeling cringy. If that makes sense. Yeah. Since being diagnosed, I've been on a journey of self-discovery and basically learning why I do the certain things that I do. Most of it essentially comes down to being autistic or potentially ADHD. I don't really know. I haven't gone down the ADHD assessment route, but then they could just be a crossover trait. Ruminating thoughts is another autistic trait, like planning conversations as well, because it comes down to like the social interaction side. So we like to plan and script like certain social interactions. Yeah, I'm going to go off on tangents here and there, so just bear with me. So one thing I remember from work, so yeah, this is like a social interaction thing. So one day at work, like I was passing someone in the hallway, and they were like, "Hi, how are you?" And I was like, "I'm fine." And then like just continued walking, and she sarcastically said, "Oh, I'm fine, thanks. Thanks for asking." And yeah, that has stayed with me. And I was like, shit, like I'm really not good at this. Saying hi. Like I'm not good at pleasantries, or I didn't used to be anyway. But I have learned over time, what is expected of me. So, when people say hi, I do say hi back. And, I pretty much straight away say, "How are you?" Or "Are you okay?" Because that's been ingrained on me, like ever since that interaction with my colleague. I don't want to offend anyone by coming across as rude, and I don't mean to be, but if I don't know the social norm to follow, then I'm not going to follow it, or even if I don't want to follow it, just it can drain your energy, Oh, that sounds so weird. Yeah, another thing that I remember when I was younger, was so autistic people can be affected by emotional regulation. So, they could have like, random outbursts or shutdowns. But when I was a child, I remember like just randomly bursting out into tears. Like one occasion was just before I was about to attend my auntie and uncle's wedding reception. I can only put that down to being the anxiety I was feeling like before that event, and like emotionally it got so much that I just broke down into tears because I was dreading the social interaction part. Yeah, obviously these days as an adult, I can choose when to be socially interactive. Like, if I don't want to go to something, I won't go. But then the people pleasing part of me, so I don't upset anyone or let anyone down, I often do go along with things when I don't want to as well. So I am slowly learning to put myself first. I know that might be selfish, but at the end of the day, it's an accommodation that I need to take sometimes, because I don't always feel like being socially, I don't feel like being around people most of the time, but in certain instances, like I just, I can't explain it. Just putting up the mask to appear normal, and like even to smile, like, so going off on a tangent again. So when I'm at home in my comfortable state, like I'm unmasked in front of James, like, God, I've been with him for 20 years now. So, he's my person, like he is my soul, like, oh, no, I was going to say we are one. That's a bit cheesy. Anyway, so like I'm completely comfortable around him. I can totally be myself, and obviously letting my mask down, my resting face is grumpy. Like I don't have this smile. This is masking, by the way. If I was to be talking to you, oh, this would be me. Wow, is that even natural? I don't even feel relaxed. I still don't feel relaxed, or like rested. But basically, my unmasked face looks like I'm grumpy or moody, and often James will be like, "Are you in a mood? Like, what's wrong?" And I'll be like, "Nothing. It's just my face." So yeah, I can often appear grumpy, like just not because of my actions or outbursts, but like just my face. Oh, lovely. Grumpy bitch face. Yeah, I call it my restin' bitch face, or restin' grump face. I often see those ADHD memes on Facebook saying like, me, or like when you're watching a movie and someone says, "What have they been in?" And then you're like, "Oh, I don't know." So a normal person would probably be like, "Oh, I don't know," and just continue watching. But me and James, we're like, "Oh, Google, IMDb, scroll down the like scroll down of what they've acted in before. Yeah, and we would like completely do a deep dive on where we've seen them, and yeah, and often when James says that, he doesn't get the right person, and he confuses them with someone completely different. Whereas I'm quite good at like recognizing actors, and when James says, "Oh, that's them from this," and I'm like, "No, no, it really isn't." And then he's like, "No, no, I'm gonna Google." So he Googles, and he's completely wrong, of course. But yeah, he's not often good at spotting an actor, you know. So there's this thing called spoon theory. It's basically a theory of like, so you have 5 spoons, and they basically represent energy levels. So I may take 1 spoon to wake up, get showered, get dressed. The other spoon might be to make dinner. It might take 2 spoons to complete a day at work. Like, I mean, I work from home, so it wouldn't take as many spoons as if it wouldn't, because I work at home, it doesn't take as many spoons as if I was in the physical office, like around people. So people are a spoon taker, energy drainer, basically, because it involves the social aspect. Yeah, and then like once your spoons are gone, your ability to do like what they call executive functioning basically weakens. So like I often find myself at the end of the day when I've finished work, like I just crash in front of the telly and, you know, watch a load of YouTube videos, or, you know, Kardashians or whatever series that I'm watching. And yeah, it's just, you know, simple for my brain to take in, and it doesn't take a lot of energy to process. So like, yeah, most of my evenings I find that I waste them away, basically. Yeah, from an ADHD point of view, that's called ADHD paralysis, or not task avoidance, but like when I'm like this, it's not laziness as such, like, because I know there's stuff I need to do, but like it's just getting motivated to do it. I can't explain it. Is it called task paralysis? Like, it's when you know you've got certain tasks to do and to be done, but just the thought of it is overwhelming enough that you don't do it, if that makes sense. So the term high functioning is also used to describe like a masking person. It's not really a good term to use, because when you say high functioning, there's obviously an opposite to that, which is low functioning. So that's not really a nice term. You know, people that are on a more severe level on the spectrum, like, it's not nice to be calling them low functioning. And for that reasoning, the term high functioning isn't really used. I also experience what's called rejection sensitivity dysphoria. It's shortened to RSD for short. And that's where you either perceive, so that's when you experience rejection either as perceived or real. So like you could get like a negative comment or just a comment that you perceive to be negative towards you when it's not. Hey darling. But yeah, if the rejection is definitely real, or at least it feels real for you, yeah, the rejection does hit differently to neurodivergent people. And so RSD is a crossover trait between autism and ADHD. And like I know in the past when I've experienced rejection, I've felt a physical pain in my stomach. Like, you know, when people say like, you know, it feels like they've been punched in the gut. Yeah, that's exactly what I felt in that moment. I don't feel RSD a lot, but there are certain instances where I can recall, you know, physical, like, upset feeling in my stomach. And it's even as stupid as, like, I feel rejection on social media, like, I think it is perceived. Like, I don't think people go out their way, like, to make, basically, when friends comment and like other mutual friends' posts, and they never comment or like my posts, like I feel a perceived. I think it's perceived. I feel a rejection because of that. It sounds so superficial, doesn't it? Like it's just social media, but then social media has become like quite an integral part of our lives in the last 10-15 years. Like, yeah, 20 years ago, when was Facebook even created? Yeah, so Facebook was created in 2004. So, yeah, social media has only really been about the last 20 years, but you know, it's now like an integral part of our lives. I mean, that's the only real way that I keep up to date with people. And I wish them happy birthday on social media. I don't tend to send people text messages to ask how they are or any of that sort of social norm. Growing up, and especially in high school, I was very shy, or I don't even know if it was shyness. I was just really quiet. Like I didn't speak much. I only spoke when I needed to. Like even like doing presentations in front of the class, reading a paragraph from a book in English, like everything like that I just dreaded. Yeah, hated it. Yeah, I was so quiet in school that I was bullied, and like there was certain people that, I don't know, they took a disliking to me not like speaking, and so they'd shout things like "speak" when I would walk past them in the corridor, or just snide comments like, I don't know, I don't think they said "cat got your tongue," but like, you know, that's sort of thing that would be said, you know. Yeah, and like someone would ask me a question in class, and then this other person would be like, oh, I don't know why you're talking to her, she won't speak back. Just comments like that all the time. And yeah, I don't know. I guess part of my mask was to, like, you know, start to speak up and like put on this front, you know. I don't always have stuff to say. So that's where I think it's quite fitting that this podcast series is called M Talks, because that wasn't always the case. I was a selective mute. I'd only speak to people I wanted to speak to. So research has found that autism is not a condition that is manifested. You're born with it because it's a hereditary condition. So yeah, it was only recently, like at my nan's funeral, the funeral director was basically, is it called a eulogy? She was reading out basically like what my nan was like as a person, and what she found comfort in life and that sort of thing. And I never realised how much of a routine my nan liked to stick to. If her routine got deviated for whatever reason, it would really upset her. And yeah, that is an autistic trait in itself. And another thing is that she liked to have certain meals on certain days, at specific times. So the routine and the repetitiveness of having the meals at set times and specific meals is an autistic trait in itself. Basically, the funeral director was listing all these autistic traits of my nan's. Yeah, never knew she was autistic, but then did sort of speculate, like, where have I inherited this condition from? Because it's either from one parent or both. Yeah, now I know it's from my nan's side of the family. So I personally haven't experienced this like some autistic people have, but when someone that is highly masked or like high functioning or late diagnosed, when they say to someone that they're autistic and get the response, "Oh, you don't look autistic," that is not the right response to give, because it's technically invalidating their autistic experience, because the condition may not affect them as highly as others with the same condition, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't affect them in their daily life. So I've dug out my assessment report, and in the assessment conclusion they say, based on the information available to us, it is our overall clinical opinion that you meet the criteria for a diagnosis of autism spectrum condition. So yeah, they didn't call it a disorder for my diagnosis, so I technically have ASC, not ASD. Although widely known, is commonly known as ASD, as a disorder. But they're clearly trying to get away from the disorder term and use condition instead. And it goes on to say, a multidisciplinary team met on 27th of February 2023 to discuss and review all information against the DSM-5 diagnostic criteria for autism. DSM-5 diagnostic criteria for autism. The team agreed that these differences have been present since a young age, are experienced in a range of settings, and are not explained by other diagnoses. The team therefore agreed that Emma's current lived experience and development over time aligns with autistic experience and autistic neurology. There was therefore sufficient evidence to give a diagnosis of autism and to identify Emma as an autistic individual. So you may have noticed in those words that they used autistic a lot rather than saying that I have autism. So, like, from what I've researched in the past, certain terms are quite harmful. So if you were to say that someone suffers from autism or suffers with autism, it's not really nice to say we suffer with it, because it's essentially a difference in our brains and how we behave, how we take in the world, how we process information. Like we don't suffer. It's not painful to us. We just take longer to process certain information. We experience things differently, in terms of like lighting, things can appear brighter to us, smells are stronger. Not just those, obviously, but like they're just a few examples. So yeah, they say autistic experience, autistic neurology, and autistic individual. So as part of the whole assessment, they had to do the Autism Diagnostic Observation Schedule, 2nd edition, which is the ADOS2, completed with me on the 24th of February. That must have been I think it was almost 2 hours, like it was definitely 1.5 hours. But that was basically the online assessment with the clinical psychologist. And another assessment that was done was the Autism Diagnostic Interview Revised, which is ADIR, and that was completed with my sister. So again, that was like another, online meeting, just asking Sam questions about myself, and like, what I was like as a child growing up. Yes, stuff like that. And then there was the pre-screening questionnaires, including AAA, in brackets Asperger's scale, the AQ, which is autism questionnaire, and the EQ, which was the empathy questionnaire, and RQ, relationships questionnaire, which I completed. There was so many questions on those. That took me such a long time to complete. And then a background questionnaire. A lot of questionnaires. My assessment was done through Mind Professionals. I did get a phone call. It was probably this time last year. I got a phone call from Psychiatry UK. And I was like, I've already been diagnosed. So I don't know what that was all about. Yeah. My assessment went through Mind Professionals as far as I'm aware. I don't even know if my GP knows I'm autistic. Because I went on the NHS app to look through my medical history, and there isn't anything that states of that. So yeah, before I even knew what autism was, like my idea of it was basically like a young boy with learning difficulties or, learning disabilities. No, she's playing with my paper. But yeah, essentially, I just thought it was the stereotypical, Rain Man ideology of what autism presents like. But that is definitely not the case. I've clued myself up on it, and I've clearly identified myself, and the psychologists have diagnosed me with the condition. I was so wrong of what I believed it was and wasn't. So I guess part of the reason for me doing this video is to raise awareness, educate people, and just show my side of what my autistic experience is. And again, autism presents completely differently than it does in boys as it does in women or girls, men, women, boys, girls. So in boys, it can present as socially awkward, introverted, lining their trains up in a row, compared to in girls, it can present as an obedient, well-behaved, but shy and introverted little girl. Yeah, in my assessment, it says autism is considered a neurodevelopmental developmental lifelong condition with different levels of symptom severity, with 2 core domains: deficits in social communication and reciprocal social interaction. Reciprocal social interaction. So that goes back to when I said about my work colleague saying hi, like, how are you? And me just responding with fine. Whereas the proper way to reciprocate that social interaction was to ask them how they were. I didn't know at the time I was autistic. Like, hey ho, we move on. And restricted repetitive behaviours, interests or activities, including sensory differences. Individuals with autism must show symptoms from early childhood, even if those symptoms are not recognised until later. This allows people whose symptoms may not be fully recognised until social demands exceed their capacity to receive a diagnosis. I'm going to open the main, because that was just a summary. They also sent me a longer document, 32 pages. Bloody hell. Private and confidential. Okay, so I was diagnosed at the age of 34. I'm coming up to being, next month I'll be 36. I'm pretty sure somewhere in this report it said something about like what my level was, or the severity level. Okay, so it goes into the pre-screening questionnaires where, so the questionnaire, the Autism Spectrum Quotient, in brackets AQ, I scored 34, the maximum score is 50, and it says 80% of autistic individuals score 32 or more. And then the empathy quotient, in brackets EQ, I scored 32, maximum is 80, and it says 80% of autistic individuals score 30 or less. So this is another thing. So it's generally said that autistic people avoid eye contact, but I would say that I'm pretty good at that. I mean, it is, again, it's a masking technique. Like, I do make sure that I am maintaining eye contact, and like, it used to make me feel really uncomfortable, but like over time I've got used to it, and like it's almost part of my mask, you know, like I almost there's almost like a voice in my head, like whilst I'm talking to someone, I'm like, maintain eye contact, you know, it's almost like a thing going on in my head saying like, you must do this, you must do this. Yeah, basically reminding myself what social cues I should be doing, I guess, to present normal or neurotypical, aka normal. So what else do they say? So here is, it says conclusion of ADOS2 individual assessment. The results of the direct assessment with Emma are suggestive of a low level of autism spectrum related characteristics. So yeah, as I was saying earlier, like, it's not a linear spectrum. Like, it is compared as levels. So obviously I'm low level, but then I guess like some autistic individuals might be more severe. So I guess, would you call that a high level of autism? Yeah. But it's basically like done on a severity of the overall spectrum. Then it goes on to say, when conducting your own research, be very mindful that historically the research, diagnostic and classification of autism has been predominantly focused on deficit in brackets, what is wrong with the person, but by defining autistic individuals by perceived deficits, pathologizing. The connotation is that they are seen as incomplete, broken, or in need of changing. This view can contribute towards stigma, reinforce false stereotypes, and significantly affect the self-conceptions and mental health of autistic people. Autistic individuals are protected under the Equality Act 2010. Having an awareness of this may be helpful if you need to self-advocate. Well, no, I haven't needed to self-advocate at all. And then it says a bit about masking here. It says, you may find that you mask at work, which results in you bottling up how you are feeling and imitating the communication styles of non-autistic individuals. You might struggle to ask for help and may not tell others when you do not understand something, or when you are reaching the point of overwhelm. As a result of this, you may find that you are frequently tired at the end of the day, leaving you feeling emotional. Some autistic individuals report that masking strategies can be helpful in terms of being successful in their jobs, school, and relationships. But it is still recognised that this can also be very tiring and challenging for individuals. And then it goes on to say about burnout and energy accounting. Autistic burnout, exhaustion, and fatigue is something that autistic people are likely to experience at different stages of their lives and can be triggered by a variety of interacting factors. For example, during periods of increased necessity for social interaction and sensory overload. Yeah, this diagnosis of autism is not something that I have to, by law, divulge to my employer. I think if you go into certain careers, like the police, that sort of thing, I think you have to, declare. Yeah, in certain jobs you have to declare that condition. I don't think it doesn't mean that they won't hire you. Just think you just have to declare it. Yeah. So I have found that in my job, so I'm an electrical engineer, and I work with clients, and they comment on the design drawings that I produce for them. And some of their comments aren't clear at times. And so I make a change and then I send it back to them, and then it's not what they wanted at all. So in that respect, the miscommunication, not understanding part of autism, and that side of it does affect my job. But I have learned to ask extra questions. It may seem like, I'm being difficult, but it's just I want to get the right information and make sure get the design right first time. And I like to have clear, concise instructions. So if an instruction is sort of left open-ended, I don't always ask the extra questions in order to get that extra detail, mainly because I don't want to come across as difficult. Again, on another note, Rory announced that she has a tour coming up next year, and one of the dates is in Norwich. So I've got tickets for me and my sister to go there. I think it's on 7th of March next year. Yeah, it's at the UEA as well. And As December Falls are supporting. Yeah, I've seen them at Download, and I also saw them on their own tour in their own right. They were at a smaller venue, the Waterfront in Norwich. Yeah, they were good. They were supported by RTO and Greywind. I first discovered Rory via TikTok because she has an account called ADHD Love, and yeah, she has ADHD, and she goes over how her ADHD affects her in her everyday life, and how it affects her relationship with her partner. Recently, her partner has discovered that he might be autistic. I'm not sure if he's currently going down the assessment route or not, but his son is diagnosed autistic. So obviously, because of the hereditary factor, like, one of the parents is going to be autistic. So if it wasn't his son's mother, then it's got to be him. Going back to stims, there's like other stims that I do. So you may notice that I've got my lip pierced. One thing is with my teeth, because there's a flat bit on the inside of my lip. With my teeth, I like to go and because of that, I have got chips in my teeth. Yeah, not good. And another thing I do is I chew my lip. I do that. It's just a stim. And sometimes even the inside of my cheek. But yeah, it's mainly like lip biting. What other stims do I do? Doing again. Oh, well, right now I'm just like rubbing my thumb on my trousers, like just repeating backwards and forwards. Yeah, this one is another one. So yeah, I'll be curious to know what you guys know about autism. Were you under the understanding that autism was only in little boys, and basically presenting as the non-verbal little child with learning disabilities, like me? Not like me, but like how I thought, basically. Are you autistic, ADHD, on the neurodivergent spectrum? This is just my autistic experience. It's not to take away from any other people that have the same condition. We're all different. We all experience things differently. And yeah, I hope I've educated some people on how autism can present itself. Like I said, it doesn't present the same in all autistic people. So that's part of the reason why it's difficult to diagnose, especially in women. Being a late diagnosed woman myself, I wasn't diagnosed till I was 34. So yeah, I'm one of many women that are in that same position. And yeah, there's even women in their 70s and 80s that, very late in life, that are only just finding out. When I was first diagnosed, I don't know, I did sort of feel a bit down, like I was grieving in a way for my past life. My past life being that I went through certain situations where if I did know that I was autistic, the outcome may have been different. Yeah, so I went through a stage of just, it's all internalizing, my internal struggles, if you like. Yeah, just sort of going over past experiences, thinking like, if I knew I was autistic, like I would have probably have put accommodations in place to make that situation a lot better for me. Things could have been so much different and better, because, you know, now I know I can put accommodations in place for myself and improve my mental health at the end of the day. You know, if I don't feel up to being social on one evening, then I won't. Simple as that. You know, I don't have to be a people pleaser all the time. I don't always have to say, yeah, I'll do that, when I don't have the capacity to sacrifice, you know, in order to make someone else feel better. I'll just be myself. Well, that's me out of Liquid Death. I better love you and leave you and get a refill, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.